Today I'm going to show you a technique that most runners and hybrid athletes completely ignore, but it'll save you time and it adds a totally different dynamic to things as well. So I've just signed up to the Asian Skyrunning Championships in just under 2 weeks' time. I haven't been training at all for it, but practice what you preach. My training should keep me ready for anything. There isn't really any changes that I can make in that time that are going to be of that much benefit to me, and we're basically racing with the body and the preparation that we've got today. What I have actually been training for is to hike the Lantau Trail unsupported. So where I would normally have a midweek fairly long hike, I'm going to have a midweek run today. But first I'm off to the gym to show you what the subject of today's video is all about. So when I was training for the unsupported Wainwright's record a couple of years ago, I was doing 15-20 hours a week. If you're watching this, the chances are that you probably spend quite a bit of time training, especially on like the cardio side of things, whether that's running or cycling, and this will be a massive help to you, especially on those weeks where you're quite short on time. Since incorporating this technique into my training, I've probably halved the amount of cardio that I do, and as I'm going to prove with the race next week, I'm still ready to compete in any kind of distance event like that, but obviously doing half of the work. And then once I've shown you this, I'm going to take you through another very simple technique that'll help you with your weaker areas when you are running. So what I'm taking you through today is known as pre-fatiguing. Really simply, the idea is that you create general fatigue in a particular body part before then going on to work it in a different way. So for me today, I'm creating that general fatigue in the lower body, which should mimic the fatigue that I'll feel after, say, a 10-kilometer run without doing that 10 kilometers. Essentially, it's the desired intensity in much less time. So this will never completely replace just doing the run itself, but it's a great way to train for distance if you haven't got the time to put the distance in on a given day. So what I've done this week is just shuffle my training around a bit. So this run is on the same day as my squat day, starting off with some fairly heavy squats, nothing crazy heavy though, 4 sets of 8 to 12 reps. And then moving on to some lunges. With the lunges, I'm making sure that I get nice long strides so that I bring those hip flexors into play. The closer your feet are together, the more it's going to use your quads. So the further apart your feet are, the more you'll bring your hip flexors, your glutes, your hamstrings into play. As with the squats, sets of 8 to 12 with these, and then moving on to dumbbell RDLs, pretty light, and again 3 sets of 8 to 12 reps. Now you might be about to wonder what it is exactly that I'm setting up here. What I am about to show you is a fantastic exercise that I would bet 90% of you probably haven't done ever. It's a great core exercise, not specifically abs, but your lower core, your hip flexors. It's absolutely fantastic for it. And it's called a reverse squat. So if you imagine a squat motion, exactly the same, just in reverse. The only thing is, I've never ever worked out an efficient way of getting into it. Oh, there we go. Right. This is the unglamorous part. And you might be wondering why I don't just do it on the floor, but the thing is, if you have a heavy weight on this, you need to have a really good anchor point. And then once you're in this position, simple as that. And if you've never done these before, you'll really feel them immediately. 3 sets of these, 8 to 12. And then I'm just going to finish up with a few sets of 20 on the leg press. Obviously, there's already some fatigue in my legs. These are quite pumpy. Really want to get that sort of lactic acid feeling in there. And in terms of a number of sets, this is where you can really fine tune the level of fatigue. It'll take some practice, as it'll take a bit of time to learn what the level of fatigue you're creating in the gym translates to once you get into that run. It is very individual, so there's no right or wrong here. For me, probably pushed this a little hard, ended up doing 4 sets of 20 on the leg press, and then once the workout was done, I was home for a quick breakfast, sit on the bus for about an hour, and then run time. So, off the bus at the start of a run, and there's one job I need to do first, which is see if some headphones that I left here a week ago are still here. I don't think they are, you know. So they're left somewhere here. You win some, you lose some. And I've literally lost those. So here I am at the start of my run. I promised to show you another little technique, but just behind me here, just before that, is Lantau Peak. This is the peak that I'm going to be running over in about 10 days time. You can see from the profile of it, there's going to be some pretty steep sections, but I'm looking forward to it. I will of course post a vlog about that on my channel, so look out for that in about 2 weeks. But in the meantime, I was going to show you a little technique that you can do to help even out or bring up weak areas in your running or your hiking pre-activation. So I'll talk more about this in detail in a future video, but just to give you an idea what this is, for any weak body part that you have, weak areas that can really have a massive impact on other areas of your body, other muscles, when you're hiking, when you're running. So it's important that if you know that these areas are weak, that you just give them a bit of extra attention before you start your hike or your run, just to turn them on, as it were. And all you need to do, really simply, is just find some super light body weight exercise that you can do for whichever muscle it is. So I'm going to show you now a little one that I do for my glutes. There's probably a shit ton of ants in here, but anyway, doing it for you guys. So just super simple leg openers. Don't want it to be so fatigued that it no longer works and that bigger muscles take over. So we really just want nice and easy 8 to 12 reps on each side, just until you really feel it working. Very different to pre-fatigue in that you are not looking to tire that muscle out at all. Just a couple of sets just to get it firing, and then when you are running or hiking or cycling or whatever it is, you're just going to be that much more mindful of that muscle, that much more conscious of it. For me, that is literally all I'm doing today, so it's going to be time to get stuck into this run, which, to be honest, I'm not looking forward to that much. My quads are feeling immensely fatigued. I probably went a little bit too hard this morning, but that's okay. Just makes it a little bit of a harder challenge than we were expecting today. So yeah, let's get stuck in. Well, that's the run done. I can tell you, I am that hot right now that I'm cold. If some of you know what that feels like. Bus is coming any minute. So let's get back to the house and then we'll do some analysis. That was hard. That was really, really hard. I felt like I'd probably overdone it a little bit. My quads were fried from the off, and the climbs felt a little bit more brutal than I probably wanted them to. But it's not a bad problem to have. It's a good example, first of all, of how you really don't need to do a lot in the gym to get into that pre-fatigued state. And it's a prime example of also how easy it can be to overdo it without realizing until it's too late. So if you are going to try and implement pre-fatigue into your training, do so cautiously. At the end of the day though, what we are training for here is our ability, both mentally and physically, to be able to keep running despite fatigue. So while we do have to be careful with intensity, doing too much will only serve to exaggerate that desired scenario, so it's not a bad thing at all. As far as my fitness goes, even though that was only about 8 kilometers, with the pre-fatigue, it's more than enough to really gauge where I am. I'm predicting that the race is going to be a bit of a struggle from about the 17 kilometer mark, but from then on, the majority of it is downhill, so I'm not too worried. I think I'll probably end up somewhere in the region of about 4 hours 10 to 4 hours 30. But that said, 3 hours 17 won this last year, and I will be aiming for somewhere about the 3:30 mark. I don't expect to be able to do that throughout the race, and I think I will fall away. I'm going to go out hard and I'm going to hang on for as long as I can. I think the biggest thing for me is going to be the heat. It was about 24 degrees doing this run, and my head honestly just felt like it was going to explode. My ideal race conditions, I always say, are as bad as the weather could possibly be, wind, rain, everything, to the point where they almost call the race off but don't. I want it to be miserable out there. I always like to think of it as an FA Cup match. You've got the Premier League team going to a non-league team, and the non-league team's pitch is waterlogged. It just serves to really even things up, and it's the same often with racing as well. Between now and then, I'm going to hike a little section of a race route that I haven't done before, and I've got my usual speed work as well, but there's no cardio of any distance between now and then. So as I mentioned earlier, we really are going into the race with the body that we have today. So if you'd like to see how I get on in that race, I will be doing an episode about it in a couple of weeks' time, so do subscribe and look out for that. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the comments. I hope you found this video useful. Let me know how you get on with implementing pre-fatigue. And of course, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.